Maybe I'm being prisoner of the moment, maybe, but I think that first half by Caruso was one of the best defensive halves of basketball. I'm not going to say ever, but in a very, very long time. It was one of the most impressive defensive performances I've seen. I know that's crazy, but it was really that impressive. The energy completely shifted as soon as he checked into the game, and one way you know Jokic is being bothered out there is when he starts completely flopping out there. Like, it's crazy. I think Jokic is the best off-ball flopper we've ever seen. I don't know if he's Brunson level on ball, but off ball, it's kind of crazy. Steph Curry could learn a thing or two from Jokic. But the fact that Jokic was that desperate that early kind of lets you know where this game was going and how difficult it was going to be for them to score and to sustain. And once I seen that, and then Westbrook checks in and he's not looking like it's going to be a positive Westbrook game, at that point I kind of felt like OKC was going to run away with it, but you never really know. Part of a champion, all that, best player in the world with Jokic, you never really know. And Aaron Gordon being out, we all knew it would be a big deal, but I think the way it showed itself is not the way we all would have assumed, or not the first thing we would have thought about, right? We would have thought like the rebounding, boxing out, the defense, the transition plays, and all that was affected for sure. But what really showed up, and it was a correlation to the way Jokic was playing, was the pressure. OKC was able to pressure them a lot more when Aaron Gordon has been one of the main guys that brings up the ball for Denver. And you've seen it the one time he tried to bring up the ball. Caruso, again, great defensive play, pressures him, he falls down, he's looking for a foul, easy dunk the other way, and that was like when the game started to turn. And also having someone like Caruso on Jokic means he can't just bring up the ball freely like he does when a center or a forward is guarding you. When you have one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA that will attack your dribble, it's not the same, and that really hindered their offense. And to me, that's what I kind of underrated about Aaron Gordon's injury going into this, just the idea that they don't really have other playmakers, especially when Westbrook is having a bad Westbrook game, which he was in that first half for sure. And then the very first play of the second half, Jamal Murray gets ripped by Shai, kind of ripped. I thought he got fouled on that play, but again, it was like the pressure. You guys have to deal with this level of pressure. And the very next possession, Aaron Gordon gets the ball on the wing. He's being pressured by Shai. He doesn't really want to take him off the dribble because he can't. Elbow Shai in the face, flagrant foul, and the game is unraveling. And notice that Caruso starts the second half. And again, on that first play where Jamal Murray gets fouled, gets ripped, whatever, you notice how Jokic is like kind of skittish, like he doesn't want to put the ball in front of Caruso. And by the way, when Caruso got switched onto Jamal Murray, he was locking him down as well. So I've always been a fan of Caruso. I was someone that was defensive of the Josh Giddey trade for the Bulls because I felt like it was a win-win deal. But I always understood Caruso's ability. I did not see him having this level of impact on Nikola Jokic. Like, he kind of took Jokic out of this game mentally to where he stopped really playing his game and he was blowing up the Jokic, Jamal Murray DHOs. Again, to me, it was one of the greatest defensive performances I've ever seen. Maybe that is prisoner of the moment. And I leave yet another OKC game not really knowing how I should feel. When you were watching what was going on out there, it just kind of felt like, yeah, they should be blowing this team out. And I know that's easy to say right now. I picked Denver to win this game before the Aaron Gordon news came out. But you're watching this game and you're watching how Denver is laboring and it's 41-42 OKC. And you're like, how is this even a close game? And then it wasn't. And they did it with their defense, but as we all kind of expected coming into this playoffs, their offense still remains a little bit uninspiring at times. But them crashing the boards really help supplement that in that first half. But you also don't really worry about sending everybody to the offensive boards when you know Denver doesn't really have the gas to push on the break. You know Jokic doesn't really have the gas to push on the break. Westbrook's not really in the game for, large portions. And I think Westbrook kind of should have been more of a, it's easy for me to say now, but the way they lost this game and the lack of that other playmaker, and you knew Aaron Gordon was going to be this limited, I think I would have tried to, get Westbrook going more. That sounds crazy, but a good Westbrook game, a great Westbrook game was something they needed. They needed that level of a variance to win this game. But as far as OKC goes, again, like with Shai in the first half, you're kind of like where Shai's imprint hasn't really been on this game. You look up, he has 14 points. So maybe I'm the one missing something, but that's just the way I keep feeling watching these games, and you look up and he's scoring 30 points efficiently. So maybe I'm the one in the wrong there. Like I said earlier, I thought it was a great J-Dub game. But again, I find myself just impressed with their role players. Aaron Wiggins had his best game of the series. Cason Wallace in that second quarter made some very good reads when their offense was kind of stalling out a little bit. He hit Chet on 2 backdoor cuts. Hartenstein airballed a floater in this game, but overall he had a decent game. Like, everybody showed up for OKC, and that's what you were worried about if you were Denver, where, you know, first of all, your 2 main guys didn't really play up to their level and no one else lifted them up besides Christian Braun, who really has been a constant this whole playoff run, and he has kind of taken a step here. Before I was talking about maybe packaging MPJ, Christian Braun, and a KD deal. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that now, but I would have a little bit more trepidation in doing it. That's all I'm saying. But as we move on to this conference finals and they play Minnesota, I want to see what happens when Minnesota goes on like an avalanche that Denver wasn't able to go on, this 3-point barrage, like, you know, other than Julian Strawther in game 6. Like, what happens when Naz Reid and Ant-Man and Jaden McDaniels and DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, obviously OKC can match those guys talent for talent, but the 3-point shooting variable is something that has been bothering OKC so far this playoff run. What happens when, you know, Minnesota goes through those games? And I guess it doesn't really matter if you lose those games, right? You could lose 3 games by getting outshot from 3, but if you grind out the 4 wins, I guess it doesn't really matter. But I want to see what that looks like when OKC has to, I don't want to say keep up because that sounds like disparaging. We know they can, there's what, 68-win team. We know they can keep up. But in terms of that, what does their offense look like when it becomes that type of game? Is Shai finally going to take some catch and shoot threes? I believe at this point, Shai has not made 1 catch and shoot 3 this whole playoffs. Going against this Minnesota defense with all of these guys that can throw at him, and you're going to allow them to just meet you at your spot. Obviously, he can do it. He can put up 30 by doing it. But I feel like if they're going to win this series, Shai has to not turn down that open 3 as much as he's been turning it down. Because going against Minnesota and Jaden McDaniels is guarding you and he doesn't have to come out to you at the 3, he knows you're not going to shoot it off the catch, that makes your team a lot more guardable. That makes you a lot more guardable, even though we know Shai is unguardable. But that's the main thing I'm watching on OKC's offense. And I think their offense can just look a lot more free-flowing if he doesn't turn that shot down. Not saying you got to take the first one, but if the ball comes back to you, gets swung to you, you're a decent shooter. Just take the wide open catch and shoot 3. I don't think you guys understand how absurd that is for him not to have 1 made catch and shoot 3 this playoff run. He's only taken 8 and he's 0 for 8. And maybe that's why he's not taking them, but you got to take those shots. And he might have taken 1 in the 4th quarter when that game was over. I don't really know. But that little thing right there is making me, leaving some doubt in my mind about OKC. When you know a player is not going to shoot a wide open catch and shoot 3, that makes them a lot easier to guard. I think he's gonna make that adjustment. Minnesota's gonna force him to make that adjustment, and I think we'll see a better version of Shai in the next series. And this is not the time to talk about it, but I feel like Ant outplaying Shai would be like a bigger deal than anything he's done so far, because I don't think there's any comparison between Ant and Jokic as a player. He beat LeBron. LeBron is LeBron. He's 40 years old. He beat KD, Obviously beating Jokic was amazing before losing to Luka. But if he beats Shai, all of a sudden the best player in the world conversation happens. I'm not saying that's the right conversation to have, but I'm saying that's how it's going to work. So it's going to be theater between those two. I can't wait. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. It will mean the world to me. On the road to 10,000 subscribers, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.